All right, so let's call the November 27th meeting of the Quality of Life and Infrastructure Committee to order. Dave Risberger, Chair, is delayed and should arrive soon. So in his absence, I will facilitate the meeting. And then I am here, Councilmember Carson.
Here.
And Councilmember Harrington.
Here.
All right, did anyone have a chance to review the minutes from October 30th? And is there anything that needs to be added or deleted? Scott, you good?
I am all good.
All right, so I guess we will approve those minutes. And then not part of our agenda, but I think we will have kind of a time here. Susan Lettis has joined us, and she is the newly appointed, let me see if I get the title right, the Director of the Deer Management Task Force. I'm not sure what exactly the title, but we'll kind of call it something along that lines. But
Deer Management Coordinator.
Deer Management Coordinator, thank you very much. I was blanking on that. So I was not ready for that. Appreciate it. So I think there was some interest in having some discussion and dialogue with you about the position and about the role and the whole thing. So I'll just kind of open it up if you wanted to say anything, or if not, we can start with some questions, so however you want to.
I was sort of under the impression that you folks might have wanted to just meet with me or talk to me, ask me questions. I know I want to review the plan that was formally adopted by the council. That's what I understand the city's plan to be at this time. And so from what I understand, there hasn't been a ton of movement forward on that particular plan yet. It would be helpful to have someone try to coordinate some things or facilitate some things to start moving that plan forward in some way. That is my expectation of this position. And, that might mean different things to different people, depending on how you like to coordinate things or facilitate connections and reach out to different people. But I wanted to start by getting a copy of the plan, which I understand Carrie has just emailed to me. So that's where I am right now.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, I think that the plan kind of gave some guidance to where we go. It took the work of the Deer Management Task Force and kind of codified it into a proposal, if you will, or plan, a proposed plan that wasn't adopted. And I think it provides some guidelines into the direction that we need to go in terms of, thank you, beginning to address, I think, kind of mitigation and measurement is the way I kind of see it, is what mitigation steps can we take, what measurement steps can we simultaneously take, and certainly there's a lot of work there, but I think the challenge here is that there's not a real, I mean, there is somewhat of a timeline, but there's a lot of pieces within different phases, and so there's not kind of like, do this, do that. I think there's just a big holistic, this needs to be accomplished in the first year, and this in the next year. So I think there's some good room to be able to kind of begin to strategize what's the best process forward, what's the best way to be able to address these things. But that's certainly just me talking. Any questions for Susan?
I think we wanted to get your perspective on data collection and how you were going to go about doing that.
Well, I wanted to get the final copy of the plan, which I have now, and I want to see what the expectations are as far as data collection in this plan. So, I mean, there's different ways to go about getting data, and there's different programs. Some are geared to different types of users, I guess. So I don't have a plan right now, but I would sort of figure out a plan based on what this plan says. I mean, I have some different ideas, but that's all.
Anything that you want to share with the committee at this time?
Not right now. I don't want to unintentionally bind someone or other people to any plans, you know, before working that out first with them and getting more information.
And then marketing of you talked about marketing of the program itself, but also just as simplistic as don't feed the deer. Do you have any thoughts on how you were gonna go about doing the marketing, what types of forms of marketing you were gonna do?
I know that the task force has had some ideas about that. I believe some signs have gone up or are in the or going to go up in some of like the pavilions in the parks. The deer exclosures are an opportunity for engaging and education, but I don't have any other plans beyond that. I think, you know, in the past, the task force has also worked with the environmental committee to possibly post some things on their Facebook page, reaching out to different groups to, you know, to see how to approach different people. There's nothing set in stone at all at this point.
I think we also talked about interjecting a little bit of a pamphlet or something inside the water and sewer bill, and then also the property, because those two bills are coming up in a year, so that might be an opportunity.
Yeah.
To educate.
I mean, the other issue that would come up with education and don't feed the deer is, then, you know, when it is happening, what's the recourse, or, you know, how is it being enforced? You know, how are
Right.
those laws being
We talked
enforced?
about that a little bit, I have no idea, I mean, do you know, is there a fine?
I don't think it's being enforced at all,
Right.
so,
But you'd actually have to capture the person actively doing it, right? I think we talked about that once before.
I mean, theoretically, someone could take a complaint from someone else.
Okay.
But, I mean, I think, more discussion, you know, with agencies that are equipped to enforce, or, you know, seeing what their issues are as far as what, you know, what the, you know, holdups are with enforcing certain things.
Right.
It's probably more complicated than we think, so.
Well, last I checked, Glenn, the OPD doesn't issue tickets. The only ones that issue tickets are the DEC.
Right. Right, when you talked about that, we had to
Yeah.
have like a picture of the individual doing it.
OPD is willing to go and talk to the people that, if they know who they are that are feeding, but they won't ticket.
Right.
I don't think they have the ability to.
So I guess, you know, those are a couple of components that we just want to make sure we're moving forward, and then, I mean, it's gonna be Susan's responsibility to start activating the hunting up on the city property, right? We talked about in and around Wilbur Lake, that there was several hundreds of acres that we all thought people could hunt on already, but I don't know, there's something missing there.
I think it's just the application.
Yeah.
I would say we're, you know, in this position, we need to work closely with city staff and Greg to be able to coordinate whatever needs to be done in terms of application process and
So Dave, is this something that you want to have her come back in December for, to give her a month
Well-
to kind of put things together, or?
I apologize, I feel like I missed half the conversation since I,
You
Just
really
walking
haven't missed too
something
much,
else.
we just basically were asking which her expectations were, and she wanted to get a copy of the plan, she got a copy of the plan now. We'd just like to have some time to go over it before she came back with any,
Yeah.
suggestions on how she wants to move forward.
I don't see anything wrong with coming back next month. If you want to give us any update that you've had, if you realize you have other questions you might have for us, you could bring it back to us at that point. So,
I have a question regarding the deer harvesting existing around the reservoir now. I do have maps that I hand out. People contact me and ask for maps where hunting is currently allowed. And I do hand out maps, but basically anything south of the reservoir is not huntable. Everything else is allowed. Yes,
I thought we had talked about the north of the reservoir, there were property locations that needed to be advertised. I thought that was one of the components. We just needed to let people know they could hunt there. But I could be misremembering this at this point.
No, I'm the same way. I think there's land up there that we just thought hunters were utilizing, but it turns out they're not. And so that might be more the messaging that Susan can get out.
Not officially hunting, there's a lot of hunting taking place up there, but it's not officially recognized, and there's a lot south of the reservoir as well.
So are we looking to expand the areas that permit hunting?
I don't know if we're looking to expand it yet, out of the four of us here, plus with Chris and you, we're all drawing blanks on what land is actually allowed hunting now today.
It's just the area north of the reservoir.
Yeah, I've got a map that identifies the area that can be hunted. I've had half a dozen people reach out to me already this year, probably half a dozen last year. They ask if they need to apply for a permit. I tell them there is no permit, it's open to the public.
I thought it was basically the land between the reservoir up to the airport.
Yes, it is basically.
So maybe this is exactly the challenge, right? And maybe this is partially where Susan can play a role, is maybe we need to define, understand what is huntable, understand the regulations kind of governing the parcels we have, and then a bit of a plan for it. What is it gonna look like? How do we step forward with these different parcels? And I think there's a short-term plan, a long-term plan. In the long term, I would love to see that we, my thing is get some trails up there. And so maybe we need to think about how that would look in the long term as well. We have mixed use, but in the short term, we have spaces that are being utilized as well, or need to be utilized.
So the property that we own to the uphill side of the road, that's not considered hunting land?
Which were we talking about, Len?
So we're Wilbur Lake, the road.
Yeah.
To the north side of the road. That land isn't being utilized for hunting? Because I actually remember years ago that there was signage that said city owned for hunting on the road.
I'm sending you a picture right now.
Okay.
This is what I send everyone.
Just as a reminder also, I mean, it says right here, I'm borrowing Mark since I don't have mine with me. Number 5 is apply for the DMAP permit for city-owned property around the reservoir, but really, I mean, it was between the reservoir and the airport. But that is for the benefit of people who are hunting, to give them that extra tag, if I remember right, to get another deer. And I remember this discussion is coming back to me now, that there was already a lot of property that hunting is allowed, but the DMAP permit, we thought, applying for it for those properties was an introduction to that permit for the first year, and to try to introduce that to hunters and showing them what the potentials are for that area. So, I think that's a good start. I think applying for the DMAP permit, advertising those properties that we have where they can hunt, and pushing that in the first year is it's a good start. I think we all thought that it might not necessarily have a huge impact on the deer population within Center City, but it's a start to something, and then we could work from that.
In my neighborhood, my property, and I bought to Harvard College this time of the year because they're in the rut and then there's active hunting, I see less deer. So that's our neighborhood. I don't know about other neighborhoods, but.
About most of the legal season, you'll see them start coming back to normal tracks, normal trails.
Someone told me a couple days ago that they actually saw a bear, like near Wilbur Park too. That's the first I've ever heard of a bear getting that close. I hear about them all the time in the town of Oneonta, but,
I hear about coyotes.
I've heard about coyotes up there too, yeah,
That's the first I've heard of a bear.
yeah.
We had a bear at the wastewater treatment plant a year ago, I think. On Silas.
That's an odd one.
Okay, we have anything else on this topic? Okay. All right, Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, film permits. This is the conversation at our last meeting that we started and then we held off and then we forgot to go back to because we had 10 other items that we were working on. Unfortunately, I mean, does everybody remember where we were in this discussion? It was over pyrotechnics.
In case you guys were gonna. You have, what is that?
This,
Yeah.
it's from the last meeting, right?
I was like, where did he go research? Is that your 12 years worth of, paperwork?
1 year.
1 year?
And I didn't even keep everything. But I was going back to this, but maybe I shouldn't, maybe I'm looking for, here we go, here it is.
Okay.
First open it. I just had down that we discussed pyrotechnics. For any pyrotechnics greater than Class C fireworks, a pyrotechnic agreement with the city will have to be formalized prior to permit being issued. And there was a question of adding something else in there, and then that was all we had discussed before we got moved on to the park pavilion rental policy and the issues that we're running into.
I think, Mark, you gave us some examples of other communities, municipalities, and how they're handling it. I don't remember if you were, did you share them with us?
I think so.
Okay.
I thought he sent it to us in an email.
Yeah,
This one was out in California.
Right.
yeah, it's California, and they had a special pyrotechnics, permit, which included fireworks. It was all wrapped into one. It was fireworks and filming pyrotechnics, you know,
Right.
whatever that may have been from that standpoint. I thought that boy, oh boy, this is really sad. I'm trying to remember just a month ago and struggling, but, I thought we had figured that we kind of had most of it covered within things, and we didn't really.
I thought we were
need
close.
for Pyrotechnics to be, kind of have a separate permit, that we had it covered in the normal permit that we'd kind of developed, and that we have already our fireworks permit.
I think that's why I have this written in quotes. For any pyrotechnics greater than Class C fireworks, a pyrotechnic agreement with the city will have to be formalized prior to permit being issued. I mean, was that something that was, it sounds like that was something that was suggested to us? Does that ring a bell?
Dave Mersley was in our meeting that time.
Right.
Yeah.
He was trying to tell us not to go into the weeds too much.
Yeah, we were getting into the weeds.
So
I
just
feel like-
acknowledging that there would be a separate permit for pyrotechnics. I think is what we want.
Well, I mean, I could take the permit. I mean, how does everybody feel about supplemental filming? Oh, this is the Cooperstown one. You know what? I don't think this is the one that, this is just the Cooperstown one. Let me grab. Do you have the other copy? I'll pull up the other one that I did. Russ. Okay, sample film permit. Okay. I mean, we could add that into the sample film permit and just put in, under, will any of the following occur, if so, please describe. That's where we added, there was special effects, child actors, gunfire, pyrotechnics. We added boat use, use of aircraft, drone use, live burns, stunts, use of animals, filming between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., sound amplification. And under pyrotechnics, we had separate regulations and permitting and fees apply, but we could just add what David suggested under there. For any pyrotechnics greater than Class C fireworks, a pyrotechnic agreement with the city will have to be formalized prior to the permit being issued.
That's something pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the takeaway from the conversations, we're trying to open up the opportunities here. We have no idea what we're gonna get, probably not gonna get Hollywood version, but we wanna open up the opportunities. My thinking would be is that anything, as this permit goes forward, any challenges with it, we'll, figure it out and be able to address it, change it, and improve it for future usage. So I think we've got something that's workable here and opens up the opportunities.
Glenn, what you missed was, when I pulled up our sample, when I took the 3 samples and merged them, will any of the following occur? If so, please describe. That's where we had gunfire, special effects, child actors, we added boat use, filming between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., pyrotechnics, I had a note under there originally, but we could just change it to for any pyrotechnics rated in Class C fireworks, what Dave Merzick said.
Okay.
Unless you have any objection or anything you want to add. But I agree, I think this is going to be a work in progress, like any other permit that we have. Okay. Okay.
You guys working on the Google Sheets, is that where you're at still?
No, actually, this is my copy I have. Apologize, I haven't worked on that Google Sheet in a while. I think I was just making changes here.
Are you looking to get this up to the next council meeting date, is it?
We can, I mean, do you want to bring it up for a discussion first, or do you want to bring it up as just to be voted on at this point?
I'd say just maybe bring it up, be voted on, somebody wants to pull, we're gonna discuss it, if they wanna pull it.
I mean,
I just would like to try to get this done before.
Yeah, I agree. I could clean up what I have written down, make sure it's the same as what's on the Google Sheet. I can do that tonight.
Okay.
And then add this in. I'll send it out to you guys, or if it's on the Google Sheet still, I'll just change it there, what needs to be changed. And then clean it up, and do you want me to send a copy to you?
Copy, please.
Okay. Okay. So, I will do that tonight. Do we have anything else on that one? No? Okay. Alright. Park Pavilion alcohol permits. We left this, the action that we had last meeting was we strongly recommend alcohol permits Saturday, Memorial Day weekend through August 31st, push to Parks and Rec via Katie for their opinion. I believe they agreed to that, didn't they?
They recommended keeping the $500 deposit and adding the date for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Is this something that is a policy change that we need the entire council to vote on this? I'm guessing.
I believe so.
Okay. Do we have any other discussion about this? Any minds that have changed at this point? Any brilliant new ideas anybody came up with?
I think somebody from the gallery offered something similar to what I had, was put somebody that has a license in charge of it. I don't think there's consensus on the council to do something like that, because I think we were looking out for there'd be some young families that would want to get married either in October, I think was a month we heard quite a few times, or in May, so.
You're saying to make that the exception if there was a permit, if they had a, not a permit, if they had a license?
Yeah, a license, because we're gonna, I think we're gonna have a negative effect on those people that wanna get married in the park. I think Emily gave testimony that she got married in the parks in Ithaca, right? That we would exclude them from October and May, April, May, when they wanna get married and have alcohol there or not. And I don't know if you can specifically say that if you rent it for a wedding, you can do this.
I don't know that we can say wedding,
Right.
but, so you're saying if they have a caterer that has a liquor license, that is,
It puts all the onus on that individual.
how do you prove that though? I'm not saying you can't, but how do you prove it? When our clerk is making a face, that worries me.
The wheels are spinning.
You could have that as part of the permit, right, that they'd have to,
You'd have to have a SLA license for off-premises consumption.
are those typical of caterers and people like that?
I can't answer that, I don't know. Sorry.
No. I expect you to be the knower of everything, so.
Everything.
My thought is, like, I understand exactly what you're worrying about, and I know that in this day and age, a lot of young people, they don't have money when they want to get married. Having a wedding in the park is much cheaper than trying to rent a place, and plus around here, there's no place to really rent, except Foothills, maybe a couple other places, but, I don't know, I would lean toward maintaining what we've already said and gotten a recommendation through Parks and Rec for, and wait and see if we get a lot of complaints, and then we can adjust.
We could always do the case-by-case basis like we've done and everything else. You know, they deny it.
Oh, and then
They
they
come
come
to
to council.
council, be like, we'd like you guys to lift this, and this is why, and then get their stuff, and the council can make that determination. That'll be the first time we've done it. I know we don't like to do it, but, cause
Well,
I feel like how many we get and what it really is, and.
Yeah, and I feel like I feel like we don't have enough information about the caterer, what caterer does that, how many times has that been something that somebody has done? I mean, it may turn into a lot, but I think we can adjust. I say we, won't be we. But I think the city can adjust when it happens, if it happens.
Yeah.
So Carrie, from your perspective, you have a young couple, they wanna get married in the park, it's gonna be in October. They hear the news that they can't have liquor at their wedding reception. Can you turn to them and just say, well, if you go before the council, I can take your application, put it before the council?
Yes, I'd like to see it put into policy though, so that it's written somewhere, but absolutely.
What do you mean, written somewhere as a?
Just in our policy for our parks usage.
Yeah, I think if we were gonna make a change, I think you have to make a policy change at that point. I don't think we can have a one-time
Yeah,
change for
that's what I would
one
be
party.
worried about.
Yeah, because then you're opening us up for problems. But if we see that there's one or two or three, there's a lot of people that want to get married in September, October, then I think the council needs to sit and change the policy and figure out how to do it.
Well, isn't that a relative term, many, I mean, did you tell
Well,
us
yeah.
four applied this year or last year?
Four had issues,
Four had issues, how many people wanted to get married in October?
or wanted to get married, I'm sorry, in October, we had one this year,
Just one?
just
And
one.
last year, did we have any?
I can tell you.
Well, if it doesn't strike you, it's not.
It's
we have-
not, it's not that
Okay,
common.
well then to Dave's point, that's where we're at then. I guess we'll wait and see if there's a lot of complaints. just don't wanna exclude young people or even old people that wanna have a wedding and have a wedding reception with alcohol
Or any other party.
on the shoulder seasons, that's all.
I didn't have a single one in October of 22.
I think this is a good place to start, because nothing says like every year we can't still work on fine tuning it. You know, if we do find out the answers about caterers and stuff like that, if they can do that, if they can't.
And it may be that there's parties that happen in the park that are catered, but the caterers tell them, go to the city, get your permit, bring your own alcohol. Because they don't have that. I have no idea who carries a liquor license locally.
Maybe, could be money opportunity for Gary Lee.
Okay, so is there a consensus to keep it as it has been discussed for now?
Yeah.
Okay,
Send that one too.
Yeah.
Just a question, Carrie, what do you think? We're gonna be asking council to approve the new fee schedule for 2024 at the December 5th meeting anyway. We just put a note on our fee schedule, what the deposit is and what the date range is. So rather than having a separate motion for this, we just include it in our fee schedule.
it's okay with me. That works for you guys?
I just want it written somewhere. Yeah.
Anybody else have any issue?
It'll be.
I think we just have to add a deposit there too.
Deposit and in parentheses, issued only between, yeah, that'd be awesome.
What do you think, Chris? It affects you too.
I'm good.
Okay.
Okay. Handicap parking space requests. We left that as, there were multiple action plans here. The Deep Street parking lot request, the action was DPW will talk with management. This is where, there are 2 handicap parking spaces behind the Lofts building. There's 6 total. We recommended that the residents talk to management, who can then approach us, and DPW would talk with management. Did that occur?
It did. Greg and I met with management recently. They have 8 ADA accessible apartments. They're all not occupied by ADA occupants currently, but they could be. The main entrance is from the parking lot side. There is no main public access from the Deep Street side.
Okay.
So they didn't think that handicap parking on Deep Street would be beneficial to them. We currently have 6 handicap parking spots in all of Deep Street parking lot, 2 in the south end. The ADA standards require 1 spot per 25, and we have 170 parking spots there, Greg?
Yeah.
So we need 7, so currently we are short 1.
Based on walking through and taking some notes on 10 or 12 dates, those 2 spaces on the south side closest to the building are typically both occupied, or at least one of them, so they're pretty well utilized. On the northeast and the northwest side, they're rarely used, 0 or 1 typically. So I think there is an anecdotal observation, justification for adding a space. If we're gonna add one to meet that 7 that we do on the south side by the building. That's kind of what Chris and I talked about before. Recommend adding 1 space now, put it somewhere on that south side by the building, and continue to evaluate if there's more of a need in the future.
On the south side of the building?
The south section of the lot, which would be the east side of the building.
How many of those apartments were rented to handicap?
What did she say, Greg?
I don't remember her saying specifically how many
Yeah.
accessible ones were.
I think our discussion revolved more around theoretical occupation. So,
So to create that one space, you'll lose two?
We won't be able to do that until next spring as far as the painting goes, because of the cold and the paint adhering to the pavement. So it'll be a springtime, thing. We'll have to do that. I could certainly put up a sign now, but as far as the painting and cross hatching, that won't be able to occur until springtime.
Can we grind that middle line out? Because you're gonna take 2 parking spaces, can you grind that middle line out and create the space and then repaint in the spring? I just don't know if you have the tools.
Well, did you say how many are being used on a regular basis?
In the south section, both, the 2x2 are typically full. In the northeast and the northwest corners up by the YMCA and by the other commercial building, there's typically 0 or 1. So there are enough spaces available typically in the overall lot, but the southern section by the building is where we maybe could use another one.
Regarding the grinding, it's not an exact science. It's new pavement. I would rather paint the line black in the spring than grind it, just, it'll be ugly.
I think putting a sign up is easy. It sends a message.
Right, but it'll just get a little confusing because that sign will probably be in the middle where the line is. Because you need both spots to make it handicap, right?
Yes.
Unless for now, we just put it on one.
I think you can probably put it on one, like it should be a little bit wider, but then the one next to it is just supposed to be empty.
Yeah.
We can make it work for now.
Just in case you have a van with a ramp. I did find information, I sent it out to you guys yesterday. Because the other thing that we said we were gonna do is look up the ADA guidelines on street parking. Since we didn't seem to know anything about street parking and what was required, and I didn't even know what those requirements are. So, it was actually pretty easy to find. Through the public right-of-way accessibility guidelines says that 1 space for every 25 spaces in a block up to 100 spaces for every then additional 50 spaces. So between 100 to up to 200 spaces, you have to add 1 more accessible space. And then after 200 spaces are available in a block of parking, 4% should be accessible. They also gave the guidelines for both perpendicular and parallel parking to the sidewalk, the size of the parking spot that has to be put in, which I'm sure is not any different than what's in a parking lot. But there is some talk about you still have to maintain a public right-of-way in the sidewalk, so that trumps some of the space requirements on the parking on the street. So, Greg, I think I included you in that email too. And it's got a link in there, so.
Yeah.
My guess is we have more than enough street parking, in and around downtown or handicap parking spaces in and around downtown. But that's just my guess.
Yeah, it's a little different comparing a commercial district like downtown to a residential area, like where some of these requests are coming from.
It's also supposed to be only if the city has metered parking or lined parking on the street. If there's nothing like, on Maple Street or anywhere, there's nothing lined, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, so I mean, Chris and I were kind of brainstorming before, what questions do we ask ourselves if we're considering putting in handicap spaces in those other areas that aren't lined out throughout the city, Otsego Street, Maple Street, like requests,
Market Street.
how are we gonna go about doing that? And where in the block do you put the space? If someone requests it, do you just put it in front of their house, if that's what they asked for? If it's alternate side parking, you have to put it on both sides. Can pretty much since last time someone requests one, we put a space by their house, how do we know when their situation changes and there's no longer a need for that, or if they move out? What if we get a second request or something down the street? If someone requests a space, are there certain requirements or information we want to request of them first? Do they have a driveway? If so, why is that not sufficient? Justify the need to put it on the street. A suggestion, Chris, I think is a good suggestion, is if there's a need for a handicap space in a particular house, and they say, well, the driveway, there's not enough room in the driveway for this, do we want to allow an exception to the city code, which requires your car, if this is your house, your driveway is to the side, your car has to be entirely past the front facade of the house in order for it to not be considered front yard parking and be a ticketable offense. Do we want to allow an exception to that for someone that has a need for handicap parking? So if they have a handicap parking pass, they can park here, with theory, they're not gonna take it. And if we receive requests, do we want to collect any amount of data from field observations to say if there's a need for adding an on-street space there, as far as go out and collect data as to how many cars are parked in the street in front of the house or in a certain distance of the house? Do we want to make it objective in some way, get some numerical data, or what?
I think we also discussed this was the first request that we've had quite a few years. And Dave, you were trying to think back the last time if it had ever happened.
Like 10 years ago.
I don't think I want to invest a lot of staff hours and resources into this endeavor for one request.
There were actually two. There was one on 42.
We talked about Deed Street, right?
And then one at 21 at Seagull.
I think I was zooming in on Seagull.
And we have to remember, it's also not just one side of the street. It's actually, each request is 2 spaces if there's alternate side of the street parking.
The other thing was, is just because we put it in doesn't mean it's guaranteed for them, because anybody could park there.
Right.
In this particular case, I think that house has a shared driveway or something about right away or something, I don't know, but maybe the suggestion Greg is getting. You wouldn't take up 2 parking spaces, one on each side of the street if you gave the exception for this individual, say this person comes back and X time period and wants the request to surface to the top of the pile again, that we look at maybe creating a space in the front of his house to allow him to park to get access into his handicap. I'm assuming he has a ramp or something that he has to get into. There's somebody,
Which house?
we were talking about the one on, Maple, or,
The one on Maple does not have any ramp
okay.
at all. But I think it's a good idea to be very objective about this, otherwise we could be inundated, especially if somebody gets the idea that, hey, I can have my own personal parking space here if I can show that there's some kind of a need. I don't think most people are going to go through that, to be honest, but I think we want to protect the city and the city staff from having to deal with this over and over and over again. I think, is this something we want to look outside, look at other cities to see what they have done for something like this? Because I feel like we need a policy. What we're talking about is establishing policy, but I would rather not reinvent the wheel if we don't have to reinvent the wheel. And I don't know about you guys, I didn't go out looking for any specific policy on.
No, so I think we were waiting for Chris and maybe Greg to go take a look at this, but I'm definitely recognizing that this is a one spot, this is 2 spots, and Scott's point, it's not just for this individual, any individual can use that spot, so. I I just don't wanna be opening up Pandora's box here, that's all.
I mean, they could park on the street now, right? So,
I think at the very least in the policy, you've gotta have something about, you've gotta have medical documentation that it's necessary. But maybe that's what we wanna do for next month is, between now and next month, is go back and look to see what other communities have done. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I, to Len's point, 1 in 10 years, but now we have 2 in front of us, so that's kind of interesting timing. And it seems either we, and I think Scott, you were kind of hinting at this, we say, well, you know, the road is the road and we have no request, but then I think we already have existing spots in the city already, so. Or we then need to create a policy, so I think that's the decision making right now is, are we gonna stick with what they can park with what's available as is? Or do we create a policy? I mean, or then we create a policy and we have to do that so in a way that is really thoughtful and to Len's point, doesn't open Pandora's box in terms of these things. But now we have 2 requests that would make equal 4 spots, I think, total. So I think, decision time is whether we move forward with a policy or whether we stick with park on the street and that's that.
But we've already set a precedent, granted it was about 10 years ago, we set a precedent of doing this for somebody.
Right.
That's what I'm worried about.
Yeah, do we have only one and only in the city?
I don't know. And I'm not saying that it's not necessary. I mean, I think there's times that it's absolutely necessary. And the reason that the one that was put in was because there was a life-threatening issue and they couldn't find a parking space and to get quickly into the home to get the medication that's necessary. My suggestion is we go back, we look online to see if there's any kind of policy in any other community, and then come back.
Okay.
Unless anybody has another idea, I'm up for any ideas.
Yeah, no, I don't mind looking at other policies, I was just, didn't know which way we wanted to go with that.
turf it to legislative.
Let's answer everything.
I'm just kidding, Mark.
There are 22 in our code right now, 22 spaces citywide.
Really?
Most of them are downtown. The ones that are not downtown, there's East Street, which actually it's listed twice, but that's because of the alternate side part of the thing, so it's really just one. Norton Ave, 2 spaces, but between the nursing home and the hospital. Roosevelt Ave, 1 space by the handicap pedestrian ramp at First United Presbyterian Church. West Broadway, that's 1 space. At 22 West Broadway. Near the intersection with Wilcox Avenue.
I'm willing to bet the church has requested those too. Because I think the United Methodist, is there one on Church near the United Methodist Church?
No, Church Street?
Yeah.
It's not listed here. No, there might be one there, not in the code. The only other one is Wilcox Ave,
Okay.
by House Street, by First High School.
There are definitely discrepancies in the code.
Yes, for sure. I'm sure there's some out there that are not in here accurately.
So what's legislative?
I guess I wasn't picking anymore.
22 was probably, I think I know where that's at.
So yeah, I mean, it sounds like just based on that, we need to go forward and review policies and outline a policy that makes it easier for you all, that makes it consistent.
Yeah.
I think there needs to be a sunset way to determine whether we sunset that spot or not, you know?
Well, yeah, I mean, if somebody requests it and they either pass away in 5 years or move, you know.
Could almost do like we did with the street policy where it's You have to,
renew it every
Yeah.
5 years.
Right.
I think I suggested it last month when we were talking about it, is
Right.
making sure that it's not there in perpetuity, or we end up doing this.
Alright, so let's
see what other places.
see what is out there and we'll come back and talk about it again next month. Okay, naming of the OHS Creek.
Lazy Leopard Creek. Yeah, so you all heard the kind of overview on this, and thank you for putting it on the agenda. Was that and I'll just kind of briefly put it out there again. The environmental club at the high school came up with a name that utilized a Iroquois word for frog. And then there was some concerns that kind of level of cultural appropriation was not appropriate for this, so they tried to contact the Iroquois nation representatives to see if this was something that they would approve or allow or accept or whatever. And they could not kind of figure out who to speak to or how to get that approval. So they went back and rethought it, and they were inspired by the fact that the original name came from the fact that there is a frog that is in that particular creek area, a leopard frog. They said the noise sounds like snoring, so therefore they came up with Lazy Leopard Creek. So the environmental board has proposed to move this forward to us. They're stating, and I just saw, kind of as I was sitting here trying to look for the link that you sent out, Dave, that there's been some email with Stephen Yearly tonight that I haven't had a chance to review it about this. It seems like Stephen is looking into it, but the idea that the environmental board stated was that the council would need to approve this, this naming of this, and they've gone out and they've mapped this particular creek, and then it would be submitted to the, I guess it's the Geological Society, US Geological Society for approval. And so that's kind of where we're at. And let me see if I can review what Stephen says here quickly. So I think Stephen was just looking, sounds like he was just looking at the process that was outlined by the environmental board.
Okay, so at this point, it's going through us to the full council to approve the name.
Right.
Okay. Thoughts? I think it's great. Creative name.
Yeah. We do know what we're talking about, right? It's that section that kind of comes down off of the hill, the slope behind the school. So on the eastern side, kind of runs down and kind of moves around the high school. Small little, I mean, it flows pretty consistently unless it's a really dry period. And then it gets into, I think it's the Oneonta Creek down there is where it connects in. Yeah, it goes underground, I think underneath the soccer field and the baseball field. I'm not sure exactly what the pipe does, but it kind of enters in almost at that, right behind the softball field there and up into the creek. So not real long, but it's certainly enough that it's above water or above ground enough that it's like a near name. All right.
You said they had a map of this,
Yeah.
they can share that, we can attach that to the council agenda.
Okay. Let me see if I can forward that to you now.
Dave, before we drop down into the CIP.
Yeah.
I just wanted to raise some old business, and that was the Chestnut Street and North Fonda Avenue with the Nick's Diner. The traffic evaluation, did we go to an RFP or an RFQ on that?
We didn't know what the cost would be. We reached out to CNS Engineering for a quote. So I'm not prepared to talk about it, but see if I can find the quote quick on my phone.
You said CNS engineering?
Yes, engineering. Did Gino send that to you, Greg, or forget?
we still had to review it together and get back to them, I think. And we had a number of intersections that we had them give us an itemized proposal on, so we weren't ready to bring it back, which is why it's on the agenda, but we did start.
Alright, well, I just wanna make sure that we're still moving forward on that, and then,
Yeah, it'll be a budget consideration whenever we're ready to move forward, whether that's
This year.
Sure, if you think
I found it.
doesn't hurt.
So we asked for quotes for multiple intersections. North Fonda Avenue, Chestnut Street was $11,500. Rose Avenue, Main Street, $6,700. Third Street and Main Street was $6,700. Walling Avenue and Main Street is $6,700.
I'm going too fast.
That's way too fast. I'm getting bits and pieces.
I don't know if you need to worry about writing it all down right now, because we still have.
We're still negotiating.
Give you an idea.
Okay.
Yeah, and West Street and Center Street was $9,500.
Okay.
So I think the plan is North Fonda and Chestnut's the main focus. I think we do that one, try to find the funding for that, and then maybe do the others down the road. And then
Did we purchase the 2 new boxes to correct
radar boxes,
the radar boxes? Did we?
we had one and we purchased one,
Okay,
so we have 2.
so we do have 2 now. And did we just do another study on Chestnut Street?
We've done a couple, so
Done a couple, I don't remember,
2 of them.
they've been sending them as they've been completing them.
If you could share that data with me, I appreciate it. Somebody was telling me that we had them back up on Chestnut Street again recently, like in the last month or 2. So,
Do you have that correct, Andy, or?
I can email that, yeah.
All right,
okay, thank you.
We weren't intending, just like, we can come back every now and then and just share what we have, but we're gonna do the whole study and come back with a whole analysis. Right now, it's just data collection phase, so I can share this with you. But we didn't have it on the agenda, because we didn't have a recommendation or anything.
Len, thanks for remembering to bring that up. I missed that when I went back through last month's agenda. Okay, capital improvement plan.
So obviously, we update this every year. Everything's a snapshot in time, it gets attached to the budget. But really, it's more of a living document. What I've done this year, in the past, I just listed the 5 years that we're looking forward at. In this case, I've shown any active projects that are still ongoing. So you can see the first column, start year. You know, it used to just say a year, and that was a little confusing because a lot of these projects, most of them carry over from one year to the next. So we're just kind of giving you an idea of the span of time that these projects are anticipated to take or have taken so far. So in some cases, the funding for a project may be in the start year or it may be in a different year. So as an example of that, looking at the third page, under the second purple shaded cell, general parking, Westcott lot retaining wall. That's something that, we know the base of that retaining wall is deteriorating, we're doing an engineering evaluation, we expect to have that done in 2024, and then, that $200,000 is a high level estimate. Right now, we said have some more study to figure out a real cost estimate, and then you would expect to see a request for the 2025 budget, unless there was, something that indicated it needed to be done on an emergency basis, which isn't the expectation right now. So that's why it's showing 2024, 2025, and the annual funding, $200,000 that it shows, again, that's a placeholder, but that's not included in the 2024 budget, that's something that would theoretically be included in the 2025 request. So this doesn't necessarily, it's not easy to ascertain in what budget year the budget for each of these projects is included. And that's just the nature of the document. I just want to be clear about that.
Right, but Jenny holds that money that the city is looking at spending at the year that the council accepts that. So it would be like the start year. So if we went to your example, 2024 for the 200,000, she would cover.
No, that would happen when the capital project is created and a budget is established. There's been no budget established for $200,000 or any amount for that project. That is to occur in future.
So even the monies for the transit center that we looked at on page 2, or all of those numbers that we were looking at on page 1.
On page 1.
Page 1. Those have not been encumbered.
It varies based on the project. So obviously the demolition project underway, that's all been, a budget has been set up, contracts have been awarded, for the, Market Street streetscape improvements, and 47 Market Street Phase 2 transit hub and site improvements. Those are the things that we've just recently opened bids, we'll be bringing forward to council, to set up budgets and award contracts. So, in a case where something has a contract awarded, obviously there's a more accurate number, and that's included in cases where we just have an estimate, or such as the Market Street Transportation Improvements projects, they have a little bit, more detailed estimates, and budgets, funding that's available, that's listed. In the notes column on the far right, typically I'll include, if there's grants or other outside sources, I'll list kind of what they are and the breakdown of them. Under the debt column, that's obviously a bond, or in some cases, it might be a low interest loan, such as the water treatment plant projects, which is on page 2. It's listed in the annual column, that's something that we anticipate including in our budget request for whatever that year, one of those years. Again, it doesn't necessarily correlate to the start year or the finish year. That's why this is a little weird. It's attached to the budget document, but it's not directly, you can't directly correlate with our 2024 budget. It's a little confusing that way.
Yeah, because back on page 1, you've got under general/admin other central garage storage area, $35,000.
Yeah, that's something you see, the start year is 2022, finish year is 2023. I'm not entirely certain that's gonna be 100% done.
I think going on the overhead doors.
Might be something that happens in 2024, but we've issued POs. That was something that was funded between 2022 and 2023's budgets.
Right.
So it says $35,000 in annual, it doesn't specify which budget year, because it would just be too much information for this sheet.
And then the next line down for the arcade, I remember we secured 460, something.
So we took $411,000 out of the DOS money that was originally intended for a project called the Water Street Boardwalk, part of the DRI. We took $411 from that, put it toward this. Since we've reduced that to $211, so that's the amount that's going toward that arcade walkway improvement project.
For the elevator.
The elevator, the walkway through there.
So we're only gonna invest $211 now?
Funding that was reallocated from the project that wasn't finished, the DRI downtown improvement project, that funding was reallocated to the 4-block downtown improvement funding project, the other 4 housing. So 2 different projects, the DIF and the DOS, which DOS being the walkway and the elevator. So because we're able to get them additional funding through this other program, it's the same owner, we were able to reduce the other funding, which puts it back into our pot for the overall Water Street parking lot project.
Okay.
This was the funding that was originally put to the walkway that was going from Water Street down to Market Street alongside the parking garage ramp.
Yeah.
That no longer exists. So, okay.
Right, so if you want to, in a sense, say that that's the stair elevator tower now.
Yeah.
Along those same lines, I guess, while we're talking about It's on the next page, on page 2, the third one up from the bottom. The DRI Muller passage, $36,000. The notes on the right indicate that that's from Ford Block LLC. So really, I mean, this was a project, I'm still listing it because that was originally a DRI project to make improvements to that, what we call the Muller Plaza passage, the sidewalk and steps that go around the building between Muller Plaza and Water Street. That's no longer a city project. While we do have a permanent public easement, Ford Block LLC is going to do the improvements, which include just some masonry repairs, some handrail, and new fence to separate that walkway and the Marks property, so people can just walk onto the hotel property. So that $36,000 is being covered through a private project. But I'm listing it here still because it's a DRI project. The city just contributes nothing to it. And again, that was made possible by the, funds moving around with the DRI project. Otherwise, the city would be contributing $36,000 plus prevailing wages. If you want, I can kind of just go through these, starting with 2024, the projects that are upcoming, or just ask questions as you read through.
Is there anything specific that you need from us on this tonight?
No, not necessarily. We obviously approved the budget, and this is an attachment to the budget. So this is what will be, unless there's changes made between now and December 5th, this is what will be included with the budget that's printed out and given to you. But obviously, as we go through, none of this happens until council approves it, and things change. So you're not locked into anything. You approve this.
Right.
So if we see money inside a grant, we've received the grant, we gotta apply for it, we've received it.
Not necessarily.
Cause I'm
So-
looking at the general
Yeah.
solid waste for that gate, and I didn't realize that we
Well, that is actually, we do have that
We do have
DEC
that one?
compost grant. I
Okay.
believe that's been approved by DEC as an eligible expense. We're
We're
just
waiting for an
looking for a
extension.
grant extension on that,
Okay.
so that we can do that. If you look further out, as you go down the pages, there's probably things listed under grant in 2026 that, are, any of these years out beyond, present time. And that's not money we have in hand or have been awarded, it's anticipation. So like the airport grants, we know that if we're gonna do a project, whether it's something that comes with FAA and or DOT money, we know what those percentages are, so to give a realistic idea of what the cost of the city will be, we assume we'll at some point be getting that funding.
And then, are there other grants that have been applied for than what we're gonna see here, along your lines of in 25, 20, 26, 27, 28, anything that we see in the grant column? Is that it, or are there other grants that you've applied for?
There's nothing that's out there that we've applied for, that's out there that far, 25, 26. I'm trying to think. Something that might not be shown on here would be the tree planting, our current tree planting grant, we don't really show that, it's not, it's shown as a capital improvement. So there are grants that are not shown on the capital improvement plan. I think the only grants we're currently waiting here, if we've received and haven't heard yet, would be the tree planting grant for Market Street, to supplement our funding for that DRI project. That may be it right now,
I think so.
but I have to check with Judy.
We may seek more, we may seek more grants for like the lead and copper stuff.
Yeah.
We got an I&I study we need to do on the collection system with that on there, Greg.
Yeah, so when we know of things that in the future, so Chris's example, of infiltration study, we can get an engineering planning grant through EFC. We would apply for that this summer, 2024. theoretically, and we would probably find out about that late next year. That would be a project that would happen in 25, so that's probably listed here. Be sure I've got that somewhere on here. Page 4, first one. I shall start year 2024, starting in the sense that we're gonna be applying for money and beginning the project, and then finish year theoretically 2025 before awarded. And I show $150,000, again, that's a guesstimate at this point, I believe that's about the amount that we can apply for. But that's something that, you know, we haven't done really much work on yet, we're coming this spring to see how much we actually apply for. And then when we go to apply for it, obviously the council will approve that. Whereas the next item, just below that, wastewater plant upgrade phase 2, that's already been awarded. That's a project that we're, the first quarter of next year will be awarding that.
Where is that,
This is page 4, the second line.
We're gonna do an RFQ soon.
RFQ for engineering design. That's shown as half debt, half grant. The debt would be the 0% interest loan. The grant is a combination of WIA and Bill funding.
Right, I mean, this is a document that puts both city staff, your office, plus elected officials on it to the same page, so we both understand, you're sharing this information, so we understand. I'm looking at it from the debt service portion of this. I'm just trying to understand what we're responsible for. And then what you're looking to do in the future also.
So you said just because there's money in the grant area doesn't mean we got grants for them yet.
Right. I could try to add something that indicates whether funding is secure or not yet. That might be helpful.
I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, because I'm just looking at going, wow, there's a lot of money going on here.
But overall, I think this document is very helpful, showing what is being worked on, what needs to be worked on down the road. But I think adding that last piece, so we know what funding is really secured and what's not, would be helpful.
Or that could be as simple as just a green highlight in the box
Yeah.
to say we're.
Yeah, in the funding box, I'll just indicate if it's been received or awarded. Easy enough.
Okay.
Something that has been talked about a bit, we're on page 4, second one from the bottom, really cool splash pad.
So,
There's been some interest from the community, a couple different groups have proposed donating money toward this. Looking into it, we got a cost estimate, that's the cost estimate, $330,000. The donations that have been proposed are totaling $60,000. I think the community would like to see this move forward sooner than later, but understanding that we didn't really have an easily identifiable source of funding to cover the gap. It didn't make sense to put that in 2024. It's not something we discussed in the budget process, so that's why I showed in 2025. But again, if we don't identify a funding source for that, whether coming from city's general fund or some other grant or additional, if people come forward with more donations, then that's something that could be pushed off as long as it takes until the council decides to move forward with it. So it's, again, all of these really are adjustable depending on priorities.
You skipped over one that I like a lot, just above that.
Oh, on track?
Yeah,
I wasn't sure where to put that because I wasn't sure where that was at exactly.
well, that's where I was gonna say is that I've been trying to roll that in with the trails, up on East Street there. And finally do have a list of grants now that we can apply to and have some conversations with OTA, who's more interested in trying to step up some of the OTA, Onion Trail Association, my apologies. Trying to step up and kind of contribute to that, so, and I'd beyond my sitting in this chair, would like to, you know, that's something that's kind of near and dear, I'd like to try to see that out as much as possible, so I'm happy to continue working on that, but I can, you know, begin working on that list of grants and trying to do those applications, work those applications if that's allowable.
Okay.
As just a citizen. I feel like I want to at least finish what I started there. But yeah, so the Trump, and the reason why is because the group Pinnacle Trail Design works closely with the guy who builds the pump track, and they think that they can package it all together and be able to get a grant for this, a package for a pump track and then the built up trails in that area is what they're recommending that we go for. So I thought that was a good recommendation.
Okay.
Is this a doable number?
It was 2 years ago when I was talking to Jim Martinez, the guy who has built a number of different pump tracks that I was pretty impressed with. And I know a lot of people in the industry and asked around and he came highly recommended. So when I spoke to him, that was the number. The reason it's the number is because he basically charges only for the plans and for his kind of, he comes out for 5 weekends and works on the actual kind of sculpting of the track, but he really relies on the local community to produce volunteers that can help move the dirt and shovel the dirt and everything else, so it's not like he has a whole crew. So yes, it seems low, it is low, it's because that's how he runs it on volunteers. His attitude is, or his approach is that the more you get volunteers invested in that space, the more people are invested in it, right? The more that they want to kind of take care of it, so that's how he's able to give that so low. And again, that was 2 years ago when he gave me that estimate, or that number.
Anything else in here, Greg, that you feel that we should,
Yeah, let's go back to page 3. I'm just looking through, because these are, you know, showing the start year 2024. At the very top, the district thermal exchange system, we'll have a presentation, I'm not sure if it'll be in December, it might be after the first of the year, but we're hopefully very soon wrapping up the scoping study. We had a grant from NYSERDA for a district thermal system scoping study. So I've got a TBD under grant other, because I'm not sure what this is going to lead to. If this leads to the city applying for additional funding, or perhaps NYSERDA just offering additional funding to continue this if it's a promising, report. So I just want to keep that there. It's on the radar, or something that might come forward, but I'm not sure what it's going to be yet. The airport projects are taken right from the airport capital improvement plan that our consultant and the airport commission worked on. The parking, downtown parking and signage improvements, that's an estimate now, shown as coming from reserve for implementing paid parking. Working on an estimate with a vendor on that, a couple vendors now. I mentioned the West Colorado retaining wall already. The ARPA projects, we have to obligate all of our ARPA funding by the end of 2024. By that's defined as having contracts in place. So we can continue to finish the work up through the end of 2026. We need to have contracts in place, tying up that funding by the end of next year. The outstanding projects that aren't started yet or aren't complete yet are the performance stages, and then we've shown the remainder of what we estimate the remainder of the fund will be around $25,000, maybe a little bit more. We budgeted that to be spent on skate park rehabilitation. We have some funding in the Apple Ball Reserve that we think we could spend to do another project that was on our list of, or our wish list for our projects, but didn't quite, we don't quite have enough money for it, but Jenny advised we've got some Apple Ball reserves that we could spend on things, park improvements that are not sports related, so looking at playground improvements. That's something we're gonna look at again. It's shown as a reserve, it's not something that's in the 2024 budget now, it's something that has, Chris and I and his staff get to working on that, developing some cost estimates. We can come forward with a proposal.
Can we go back to the Fuller Plaza and Newell Park performance stages?
Sure.
So, Dave, this is kind of for you. Kevin Wood was up I met with Greg today. So that project is still being very active moving forward, so.
Good.
He came up in person to talk with Greg. Also my granddaughter's birthday, first year, was yesterday, so he was there for that too, so. But, I just wanted you to know that he's still very engaged into it, and Greg, I guess, had a very good conversation. I saw Kevin this afternoon. And so I think you both understand where this has gotta go, so that project is moving forward. Are we looking at Al Lyman for the one down in the park? Is that what we're still, just because you guys are coming off, I'd like to truly understand what our expectations are.
First of all, when it comes to both of those, I know very little more than anybody else here.
Right.
Especially about the one in the park, the larger one. I think that one is going to take, it's much more ambitious because they're looking at a permanent structure, permanent seating. As of right now, I think he's still involved with that. But I feel like it may be worth the city's while to push for the Muller Plaza bandstand to get done first, and then start focusing on that one. And I know there's a time limitation.
And that's what I'm concerned about, because did you just say we have to get contracts done by 2024? So
What they're talking about is a very large facility that ARPA funds will just, even if we took up the ARPA funds for both of, that are involved with both of these bandstands, I think it would only be a fraction of what would be necessary for the one down in Neal Park. Even if that's approved by the city that says, yeah, we want to take this amount of space to build this, I think it would, I'd be surprised if there isn't some opposition to it, because there's always opposition. So I would like to see it, but do I think it's going to happen? If I was a betting man, I'd say it's we might want to downsize that plan to something different.
I was just wondering, we got stuff that we didn't get done in the Maskey Field, but what if we did like a bandstand to the Maskey Field and got where the old, we took out the old seats there.
The grandstand?
Yeah, look at maybe making that a multi-use space. You do something in there.
it's funny that you say that, because I literally was sitting here and that's what I was thinking also, I was trying to make those two projects come together. But we need to have something in place before the end of '24, and that's very concerning to me, given, and I'm thankful that you pushed the envelope of getting that discussion going, because I didn't know anything about it until.
So I think it's the same issue though with the Neal Park plan. I think there's ideas, but there's nothing concrete, there's no direction right now, there's ideas. So I think that's something that the next council is gonna have to start pushing. I think we finally, it looks like we have a little bit more focus with the Muller Plaza,
Definitely.
and the council can keep pushing that and get that done.
But you know how this works, so even pushing Miller Plaza, the smaller project, we'll be lucky to have that done by the fall of '24. And as actively engaged as Kevin is, and he is, he's really going at this now. But I'm concerned that the one in the park, the Nemo Park, is not going to get any lift at all.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, maybe we have to try to combine two.
Well, you know how big projects end up. You have an idea and that as it
10 years down the road,
percolates,
you're still
it
doing
changes and morphs until you finally get a product that is gonna work. I think the Muller Plaza one, I think it's gonna go, I'd like to think it's gonna go quick now. So, but I think you're good, the next council's gonna find that they're gonna have to start facilitating. If they want that project done in Neola Park. So,
We might have to shift gears and we have to put the ARPA money towards something else and make that, we know we can accomplish and make the bigger bandstand in the park a longer range goal.
well, mobile bandstand, don't forget, is near the end of its life, and we do need something down there.
Oh, no, I agree, I'm just saying, or maybe we can only just start the basis of it and it's gonna be multi-year.
Yeah, maybe it's something small that can be grown, perhaps. So,
Greg, what exactly has to happen by the end of '24? We have to have contracts or we have to have finalized work?
Contracts in place, so then by the end of 2026, the contracts, everything has to be expended
Okay.
and closed out.
I still kinda like making the Manistee Field a multi-use event space. I think it's very underutilized. And I'm not trying to bash baseball, but we don't get a good turnout.
actually, if we need a contract by the end of the year, if we start from December 2024 and backtrack, we don't have a lot of time.
No, right, that's why.
That's why I brought it up, I wanted to talk about it.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about the time.
Yeah, we need to go into an RFP for design, RFP, RFQ.
Wait, say it again, sorry.
I think we would need to go for an RFP, RFQ to hire a design consultant first quarter, right after the first of the year.
What's the remaining funds for that project potentially?
There's 235,000 for the two projects together, so whatever we spend on Howard Plaza, we can use that.
Okay.
I'm not sure what that is just yet.
Yeah, I was still blown away by that design that Andrew came up with for
And that-
Miller Plaza.
And don't forget, we could always pull back some of that money and invest in our water infrastructure or something like that, because the ARPA funds can be used for that. Even though we still wanna get the bandstand and stuff, we gotta do something down there. I mean, we may have to go with, unfortunately, like another mobile one for right now and then, or something like that. And then use the rest of the funds we can use for water infrastructure or something like that to try to ease. Just, cause we got time, the time crunch, is the only reason I bring that up. Is that still, you know,
Maybe that's our plan B, and we execute by a certain, well, you execute by a certain date, provided that no contracts are in place. Or that the other idea is not hashed out. I mean, you're right, it's a tight turnaround, even if you put an RFP together. You're good.
If you go in January to release, you're not gonna see them until March. Right, you're gonna give them
By the time they award a contract, yes.
60 days to come up with something.
I think you have time if you start the first quarter, like you said, though.
Yeah, I think
But if you don't,
you could theoretically get the design, you know the design and the cost and award that, and so you know how much of that 235 you have left, and then you can decide, based on a timeline, like a discussion with the design consultant, you're probably not gonna be awarding a contract at the end of the year, maybe you are.
It's gonna be tight.
Yeah, so you, at that point, you would know how much is left over, if we need to shift it somewhere else, we can have that conversation at that time, but maybe at least you get design done, so you have an idea of what project we're aiming for in the future.
I mean, looking at Plan B, you guys already have water projects, so you know what we need to do.
There's a lot of projects here we can do.
So, I mean, there's, you know, I can't think anybody would be upset if we work on water infrastructure.
We can do lead replacements throughout the city with that money. I won't do all of them, but I do a good chunk.
So there's a Plan B, so we do got a good Plan B.
And so that would have meant the original intent of we wanted to spend the money on was to really incentivize active, remember this was all making a decision in COVID. And I would say, I don't know, Greg, you probably spelled it over quicker than I can, but at least 80, if not 90% of that has been devoted to those types of projects, so that whatever remaining X would be to the water and sewer. I mean, I think we were true to the original intent, and then, plan B to make sure we use that money.
We did a lot of good investments in the parks, we
Right.
got the trails,
The trail,
the blacktop walkway for people, we got the electric in there.
Do we get the 5K on that as well?
No, they didn't, didn't portion of Mark, some of it did, didn't it?
Portion of it, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so like the first half of ARPA money was all for park projects, and there might be some remainder, and the other half we're spending on River Street, water and sewer.
Oh, right.
But this would just be additional.
Okay. But still, we did a good job investing in our park, that was the original intent. So, I think that sounds like a good plan B. Easy to put together plan B, right?
I just wanted to go through the rest of the ones.
Sorry.
2024, Union Street, that's listed 3 times because there's a general sewer and a water component. Again, we'll have better cost estimates as we do design. I think we're doing survey now or soon. So the design will be done in 2024, it'll be something that we would be aiming to construct in 2025, right, Chris? Street improvements, when you see a grade outline like that, that's kind of, I've got that for street improvements and that kind of a generic catch-all street improvements. Doesn't say what street exactly, but our milling and paving, those kind of things that our public works group engineering determine on a year-by-year basis. Right now, we're showing $260,000 coming from the state funding we get every year. The $40,000 is just the sidewalks budget that's in the 2024 tentative budget. Point Farm Pump Station Emergency Generator. Jamie had mentioned that at our last meeting. Things like that, you know, you'll see in the 2024 budget listed under that equipment schedule. The next page, we mentioned the inflow I&I study. We're applying for this summer, page 4.
Sorry, I get myself confused, I think.
That's all right. The second one, you mentioned the phase 2 upgraded plant, we'll be doing RFQ in January or not sooner, putting that out. That's funding that we've already been awarded. Other projects at the treatment plant, settling tanks improvements, chemical storage improvements, rebuilding the pump, those are listed in the annual column, and they all are in the annual 2024 tentative budget. Jenny had mentioned during our budget discussion that grade line water distribution, for the first time in a few years, we've been able to dedicate $100,000 in our annual budget for water distribution system improvements. Water supply is held all aquifer testing that's necessary to maintain the amount of water we're allowed by permit. The Susquehanna River Basin Commission to withdraw from that well, so we need to do an updated test. Gino's been working on that. This is kind of a placeholder, this enterprise public transit, doing the feasibility study, so as we discussed about going forward with possibly taking over transit operations for the county, as we continue to look into that, we might look for some funding to do a study for a future new garage. At some point, we're gonna have to accommodate electric vehicle charging as buses transition. It'll be a little while before our buses are electric, but it's something that we wanted to placeholder on here to start doing some planning for that.
Kind of glad to see that there, because I know that insurance companies are telling you now electronic vehicles can't go in a regular garage, you have to have a special garage for them to charge for the EV.
Fire suppression, that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack with that. City Hall emergency generator, we're getting into 2025 now. I don't know if you want me to go through all of these, but you know, these are some projects that have been out there for a while that we're looking to get done at some point in the future.
I don't think we need to go past 2024, in my opinion. I think we can read through it, and I'm sure they're gonna come up in the future discussions.
We'll put this on the agenda for finance as well, just to get the whole council opportunity to have this as well. And then it'll be included as a, you know, at the end of the budget when we adopt that December 5th.
This is helpful.
Thanks, Fred.
Well,
So, Anybody have anything else they want to bring up for discussion? Okay. We have no executive session, so thanks, everybody.